Hi guys, welcome to Crazy Burger. In this video we're going to be looking at the Anbernic RG35XXSP. Is it worth the hype? Is it worth buying? Let's find out. Okay guys, so let's have a look at the Anbernic RG35XXSP. Clearly it's been designed on the Game Boy Advance SP and heavily inspired by that, but it is a little bit larger and it will play a lot more games than just Game Boy Advance games. And it is very impressive indeed. It comes in 3 different colours, it's got a 3.5 inch IPS screen and it's pretty cool. So let's have a look at it and we'll highlight any issues as well along the way. So the first thing you're greeted with is the actual unit, and it's sort of nicely packaged in this little plastic box and protected as well. We'll have a look at this in a minute. This is the silver version that we're going to be looking at, and it is pretty cool. It does seem pretty thick, right enough, and that's one thing that's quite noticeable, and it's got a fair weight to it as well. Inside the box you've got your charge cable, you've got a instruction book as well. It'll give you some tips and any hints and stuff to go. Definitely worth reading. Sometimes these are a lot of nonsense, but in this occasion it's definitely got some reading that's definitely worth doing. In the box you've also got a screen protector, which is always welcome. That is a nice touch, and also, as I just mentioned, the charge cable. Now, something that's probably a bit of a negative surrounding this unit is the charging. Now, it is stressed, and it's obviously become quite apparent in the last few months that you really should charge using the cable provided. Initially when I got a charge with another cable and it really wasn't working. It wasn't charging at all, it didn't recognise it, and then I've probably had some issues since with charging. And battery life is not amazing. But anyway, I'll go into further detail in a minute. But anyway, definitely stress, use the cable provided for charging purposes. Now, it does say that there is 8 hours playtime. However, I've definitely not seen that so far. I've had about maybe 3-4 hours at best. It's not been brilliant. That's probably the only drawback I can think of so far. But yeah, let's have a look at the unit. You've got 2 memory card slots on the bottom here. The first one I've already got included, which came with it. It's a 64 gig, has lots of games already. There's certainly thousands on there, and you can expand that by putting a further memory card in the second slot and add more games. You've got your headphone jack there as well. You've got your volume up and down in the side. On the end here, interestingly enough, you've got your mini HDMI out, which you can obviously play on your TV if you really wish. Not sure why you'd want to do that. You've also got your charging slot here, and you've got your shoulder buttons L2, R2, L1, R1, and they actually feel nice and clicky. They are really nice. On the other side you've got a reset button here and also the on off switch. Now, have to be aware, I didn't find that very good at all. I thought it was quite sluggish trying to turn the unit on and off. Now, that could be relating to the charging issues as well that I've had, but it's not been the most user friendly at all. It took a while to actually turn on. On the back end, it really just gives the unit model number and the size of the battery. And as I said, it says officially 8 hours, but I'm probably lucky if I've had half of that so far. But that's probably the only drawback that I've seen. Let's open it up. Now, obviously I've got the unit turned on, but it doesn't go into standby mode when you actually close the sort of clam shell like that, unfortunately, so beware of that. The battery will just continually run down while it's in sort of closed mode like that, and it will still drain, so definitely need to keep that in mind. It does sometimes go into sort of sleep mode like that though. If you want to turn it off completely, you definitely use the side button, otherwise it will just drain away at your battery. You can clearly see you've got some nice buttons here. You've got your A, B, X, Y button. You've got a menu button, which is probably your button that you're going to use most to access the save states and different options and exiting games. You've got your start and select button, and you've got a D-pad here. The D-pad, it seems okay. It's not the best, to be honest. I definitely found some issues getting to some diagonals, especially maybe you're trying to play Street Fighter 2 and trying to pull off those special moves. Wasn't the greatest, but otherwise it's perfectly fine and functionable. Okay, now obviously you can upgrade to different firmware options out there, but this is the standard one we're going to look at, and we'll just look at the games that is included. You can expand the library as well, as I've said, add your own games, but there are already thousands of games already included, which is pretty cool. Now there are a few options. You've got your favourites, which is fine. Got history. Well, let's go back to the start. So this is the main game room, which is a little bit useless. It just lists all the games. But I would probably recommend going straight to the RetroArch game list, and that has 5 pages of different consoles and computers that you can actually play. There are tons and tons of games already included here. Although, interestingly enough, there are no Super Mario, Zelda. There's certainly a lot of missing Nintendo games, which is I've seen on the units recently. Obviously Nintendo maybe are clamping down a lot more than the other companies are, and they don't like it. There's other apps and things here which I'm not sure what the point is. I think primarily I'm really going to be looking at the games. There are obviously some options you can mess about with, change the screen details. You can also connect to the Wi-Fi with your network, and you can perhaps connect to online leaderboards and that type of thing, and get some updates as well. But yeah, let's have a look at the games. That's basically the main stuff you want to look at. As I said, the menu button will also access the settings. That will be your forefront within all the games. To exit games is pressing this menu button here. Start and select doesn't really do an awful lot. Sometimes it does reset the game, but everything you're going to want is accessed through the menu button. So we've got PSP games, PlayStation games, NDS, Nintendo DS, N64. Obviously you got your Capcom stuff, Atomic Waves, Dreamcast, and Open Bore, which is, I guess, some stuff like that. Pretty cool. Now obviously PSP, PlayStation to a point, N64, Dreamcast, they all really used the dual thumbsticks. Now as you can clearly see, this unit doesn't come complete with any thumbsticks at all, so when you're playing some of these games, you'll probably have to spend some time reconfiguring the buttons so that you can use the D-pad. Now obviously some games you won't be able to do that, and you'll probably run out of buttons to use, but for the best part, I've found that the emulation is really good though, but playing them on the D-pad it's been fine, but you might come across problems in some games. So keep that in mind before you get started. It's not pre-configured. You'll probably have to go and change the settings to make sure the D-pad is set up to work. Everything else seems fine though. You've got all the Capcom system stuff. You've got Fireburn Neo, NES games, Game Boy games, lots of Game Boy Advance games, Game Boy Color, Game Gear, even Game & Watch, Homebrews, MAME, Mega Drive, Neo Geo, Naomi, MSX, Mega CD stuff, Pocket Color, obviously Neo Geo Pocket Color. We've got your PC Engine stuff, the PC Engine CD, Pico games, which is pretty cool, Pokemon mini games if you like that type of thing, Sega 32X, you got Super Nintendo, Master System, and you got the vertical arcade stuff, which seems a little bit pointless. You basically have to play the games like this, which is a bit weird, but they are there. You've got your Virtual Boy, you've got the Wonder Swan, and you've got some various ports. Now, in the various ports, there are pretty cool stuff in here. Grand Theft Auto 3, you've got Quake, Stardew Valley, which is pretty mind-blowing that it's running on here as a port, but it's all here. There's some really cool stuff. Okay, first off, let's have a look at the PSP games that's been included. There's a few here, and the performance is pretty good. Obviously you have to have a frame skip on, which I'll go into detail. There's a few PlayStation games, not loads, there's 20 included. Nintendo DS games, not loads either. Some N64 titles, some strange inclusions there. Obviously if you want to play some of the more renowned titles, such as obviously Zelda, Super Mario, you're going to have to add them yourself. It's the open board games, a handful of Dreamcast games, Atomic Wave. We've got obviously the Capcom system stuff. You can see the game list is at the top here. Now this is more arcade stuff. Fireburn Neo. There are 473 games. One of the best parts about this is there's not a lot of repeated games. Sometimes when you get some of these units from China, there are a lot of duplicate games, but thankfully there are not a lot here, so that is a good sign, I would think. There's 400 odd NES games, Game Boy games, another 400 odd. There are Game Boy Advance 200 there. We've got 375 Game Boy Color, 300 odd Game Gear games. Oh. Game & Watch 48, not sure why they would want to include these. Homebrew titles, some interesting stuff in there. MAME, there's another 471 games here. Mega Drive titles, 481. Mega CD, there's only 4, some strange inclusions. 298 MSX games, not really sure why that should be there. You've got Naomi, 15 games. Neo Geo, 152. Neo Geo Pocket, we've got 41. PC Engine, 328. PC Engine CD, there's 3. Pico 8, Pico, I think it's Pico 8, isn't it? There's 39 games there, which is pretty cool. Pokemon Mini games, there are 28. 32X games, 9. Super Nintendo, there are 429. Master System, another 350. Virtual Arcade, 152. Not sure why they would include these. Virtual Boy, 23. Wonder Swan, 73. And ports, you got 13. Now, as I said, you can add your own games. And there are obviously some options. You can maybe add, I guess, more home computer stuff like Amiga, Commodore 64. And a few other type things. Now, you may have to update the firmware to get access to that stuff. I'm not entirely sure. I will maybe look at that in a future video. But now, let's have a look at the performance of this unit. Okay, first up we'll have a look at PSP games. Let's have a quick bash at some of them. As I probably mentioned earlier, you definitely have to change the button configuration, because a lot of these games will utilise as if you are playing with a dual thumbstick, or a thumbstick even. So basically what you would need to do is go into the settings. I would definitely make sure you're maybe at 1 PSP. You can probably push it to 2 PSP. It seemed to work, but I would probably stick it to 1. And make sure your auto frame skip is on, just to get the best out of it. I think without it was probably definitely chugging a little bit. Oh yeah, sorry, while we're in there, obviously talking about the controls. You definitely need to control mapping and change the top part here, your D-pad up, down, and I think you need to, is it the bottom part? Yeah, make sure that these are, the analog are calibrated to the D-pad here. Just press the A button, then choose the up button, and then go through them all like that. Pretty straightforward to do. And once you've done that, you'll be able to play the games, no problem. This is Ridge Racer. Obviously, something else I want to talk about, the screen quality is pretty decent. You can see all angles there, but being the IPS screen, no problem. The sound is also absolutely fantastic. Let me put it up as high as I possibly can. Now, it is only a single speaker. You can see it is at the front here. But the sound is really impressive, and it's definitely surprised me the most how decent that sound is. Now obviously I'm not going to have it that sound, because that's probably going to hurt your ears, so let me put it down a little bit more. Oh, certainly not mastered this yet. I've certainly noticed a few jumps here and there with it, but putting out the frame skip of 1, it seemed absolutely fine. Let's have a look at another game from PSP. It's probably not quite perfect. You can hear some issues with the sound, and also not quite 100%, but it's certainly playable. I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to play every PSP game, but the few I've tried seem certainly playable. So moving on quickly, we'll maybe have a quick look at PlayStation games. I'm pretty sure these should play fine. Sort of PlayStation emulation has been fine for the last number of years. Even sort of lower end devices should play PlayStation no problem at all. So this is Colin McRae Rally 2. This was a massive favourite of mine when it was released. I loved these rally games on the PlayStation. I thought they'd done an amazing job. I don't think they've been any better since, to be honest. That's just my opinion. Interesting, this is the US version, I think, and the Europe version or UK version definitely was the co-driver of Colin McRae that was doing the voiceover, but maybe that accent was a little bit too thick. I'm pretty sure he was Welsh, might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was Welsh. Anyway, I kind of missed that, it just doesn't seem right for me. Cool game though. Okay, so while we're on PlayStation, I'll give an example of the RetroArch. So if you press the menu button, you get access to RetroArch, and obviously you can change whatever you like there, shaders, you can change the controls, and some of the games you will have to go in here and change the controls, probably primarily for Dreamcast and N64. So you'd really just go into the controls here, port 1 controls, and you just change it relative to whatever you're playing within here. Now, for changing the N64, for example, you would go down here and change the left analog Y minus Y plus to make sure they're allocated to the D-pad. I think that's what worked for me. Either that or you make sure you do it up here as well. These should be automatically assigned, but I think I've done both of them to be sure that they work properly, and it was absolutely fine. You've got disc control options here as well. Obviously you get multi-disc on PlayStation. You can use that in here too. Different shaders, cheats, and obviously your save states if you want to save your game. There are some shortcuts as well by just holding down the menu button and a few different other options on the sort of keys here. Just refer to the manual for those shortcuts. Obviously you get access to different settings as well, but this is how you quit your game. Just press quit and it will take you back to the main menu. Okay, moving on, we'll have a quick look at Nintendo DS games. And this is using the Drastic emulator, I believe. Let's have a quick look at one of these games. Let's have a look at Ridge Racer. Feel as if we already played Ridge Racer, but let's have a look. You use the shoulder buttons to access the different screen options. I think it's some of these buttons here, just press the different ones. You can get full screen for the main one, which obviously would be more helpful. But it seems to work fine. The emulation is absolutely fine to me. Like obviously you can change if you don't like some of the settings, but I couldn't see any massive issues with this. Oh, it's obviously the wrong screen.
3, 2, 1, go! Alright, this is gonna be a great race.
Not if I'm driving.
2 laps to go.
Oh gee. Yeah, I've definitely not played this one very often. Sorry, that is really astonishingly bad. I think the car seems to definitely handle a little bit differently in the DS version. Certainly a little bit more sensitive than the other versions that I've played. But anyway, that's not the point here. The point is the emulation seems pretty decent. Okay, so moving on to N64 games. Now you're probably going to have to add your own titles here. But let's jump into Castlevania. As I said earlier in the video, you're going to have to remap those controls. You might run out of buttons in some games that you play. But yeah, just access the menu button, go into RetroArch and update the controls so that you're using the D-pad for the control for your characters or driving or whatever. Now there's a few imperfections there with the graphics, definitely a few glitches I noticed, so I'm pretty sure not every game will run perfectly well, but I thought the gameplay when I was playing this was actually fine. Apart from the glitching, it seemed to play fine. You see, graphically it seems okay. I have clearly no idea where I'm going. Is this a comedy? Yep, it's a comedy. Okay, maybe it's not, maybe it's a horror. Anyway, I think it seems pretty cool. As I said, I don't think every game will run perfectly well, but for the best part, this seems pretty decent to me. So I'm not going to play every single title here, I'll just have a brief look at some. Obviously Dreamcast would be one I'm going to have a look at. I think we'll jump into Soul Calibur. But I thought the performance was pretty good for Dreamcast. Emulation certainly has improved a lot over the years. Just like N64, you may have to change the controls. Sometimes in the Dreamcast games there are options in the menu to change the controls, so keep that in mind as well. It might be slightly easier to do it in the menu rather than within the RetroArch options. I absolutely love this game, and this is playing really well. I've seen it being emulated pretty badly over the last few years on some devices, but this, it's pretty decent. Not perfect, but it's very decent indeed. So another puzzle game worth pointing out is Atomic Wave. Let's have a quick look at Dolphin Blue, because that one is notorious for being bad on sort of lower end devices, but let's have a look at it running on here. I think you'll agree that the performance is pretty decent on that. I think the performance is really good. Okay, so also on Atomic Wave, we're going to have a look at another game. This is the Rumblefish.
How to play.
Sound is absolutely fantastic on this.
Round one, fight!
Ah, interesting. Pretty cool. Okay, so I'm not going to be playing through every single thing. I have tried something and a few games from every single thing on here, and I've really been impressed. Everything I've chucked at it has been absolutely fine and certainly acceptable, and this is one impressive device. But I guess I really should try some Game Boy Advance titles. So let's have a playthrough on some Game Boy Advance titles, and it really does feel like this is the best device to play Game Boy Advance games on. It really is impressive. But yeah, let's play through a couple of games. I love how they've got this down the bottom here. It definitely makes you feel as if you are playing an original Game Boy Advance. Very cool indeed. These are obviously borders that come in depending on what games you actually play, and it will vary if you're playing arcade games. That's pretty cool. You can turn them on and off, I guess, if you want to, but I think that looks quite cool. Nice touch. Graphically, it looks fantastic, doesn't it? Certainly better than the real thing, arguably. Interestingly, I've never actually played this game on the Game Boy Advance. I didn't even know it existed. That's pretty decent. Not totally arcade perfect, obviously, but for the Game Boy Advance, pretty cool. Very colourful. So also Game Boy Color, Game Boy games, Game Gear games, they all play fantastically well on this. It obviously does feel like it is tailor-made for these sort of devices. I'm not really sure why you'd want Game Watch-Ons here, it really does seem bizarre. There are some homebrew stuff on here that you may want to delve into. Obviously loads of arcade stuff, Mega Drive stuff, Mega CD, MSX, Naomi, they're all running absolutely fine. Same with everything else here, which is pretty cool. Now, something I want to touch on is obviously I mentioned the D-pad. I didn't think it was perfect. It's not ideal for reaching those special moves on Street Fighter 2. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's a skill issue. Probably is, but anyway, let's have a look at it. Obviously, while I'm on here, you can notice there are some extra options here if you want to select the core. Now, this might appear on all the different the emulators you've got here, especially for arcade. You may need to change the emulator. You just press Y, and you can obviously change whatever emulator that you want to use. Now, some might work better than others. It's quite nice that it's simplified for you. You don't need to mess about with RetroArch back-end options. This is quite a nice touch. So this is Street Fighter 2 on the SNES or Super Nintendo. Something I also want to note is there was a lack of search options looking at the games. I've just had to scroll through them all. There's no quick way of doing it either. I couldn't find anything. So that is a little bit of a miss. Maybe you'll get some of those features in other firmwares perhaps, but definitely found it a little bit tricky to try and pull off some of those special moves due to the fact that there's a lack of diagonals on this. It is possible, as you can see there, but it's not the easiest at all. Again, could be a skill issue, so sorry about that. I'm definitely struggling there. And I managed to pull that off. It is possible, but very, very tricky. So probably wouldn't buy this game if you're specifically playing it to play Street Fighter 2 or other games that utilise those diagonals. Not the worst, but not quite the best. Okay, before I finish up the video, I'll have a quick look at the ports because some of these are really impressive indeed. Let's have a look at Grand Theft Auto 3. This is obviously a port of the game, but it runs really, really well. Now you may have to change the controls on this again, much like N64 titles, because the controls are maybe not mapped to a D-pad.
I know a place on the edge of the red light district where we can lay low, but my hands are all messed up, so you better drive, brother.
As you can see, that's not actually mapped to the D-pad, so you're really just going to crash. So, not sure how to actually change the controls in this one, to be honest with you. Not sure where the options are to be able to change it. Maybe back in the main screen, but I couldn't find an option to change the D-pad for this game, which is a bit of a shame. Maybe there is a way, but I couldn't actually see where I could change it. The sort of face buttons were absolutely fine, but other than that, I could not see. Maybe there is options in the actual game that we can change. Let's see, controller setup, classic, standard. redefine controls. Well, maybe we can just do it in here if you can actually make that out. It is absolutely tiny, so I'm pretty sure there will be a way. You've just got to have the patience and fantastically good eyesight. So to exit the ports, I'll use press select and start at the same time, which are these two buttons down here. But let's also have a look at Quake running. This is also pretty impressive. Now thankfully this one has already been pre-configured and you can play it with the D-pad, which is great. And you can see here the D-pad is controlling the screen here perfectly well, so that's fantastic. Obviously that's always a worry when you're playing this game, that it may not control properly, but happy to say it controls and plays really well. Very nice. If this doesn't want to make you buy this unit, then nothing will. Pretty smooth as well, I'm pretty impressed. Okay, so last up we'll have a look at Stardew Valley. This one does take a little while to load, so it's a bit slow, but it works absolutely fine once you get into the main game. I'm actually quite impressed with this port, it is very cool. I'm no expert in this game, I've probably only put in a few sort of hours worth on, I can't remember, I think it was the Switch that I originally played this game on. Pretty cool game if you have the patience, I guess. I definitely ran out of that, but very cool game nonetheless. And this port works really, really well. It almost seems that it's been perfectly made for this handheld. Very cool. Anyway guys, to sum up my thoughts on this sort of console, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's really, really cool. It's got some issues with charging. I don't think the battery life is particularly amazing, and definitely didn't think that the power on off was that smart either. Maybe it's just me, but that was the only thing I could find that was massively wrong with it. Other than that, great stuff. Emulation really well right across the board. And it's perfect for so many different devices. It is priced really well too and competitive, and there's not really that many clamshell style sort of units like that out there, and this is certainly one of the best ones I've played in the last sort of year or so. Pretty cool, and I'd certainly highly recommend it. Okay guys, so just let you know, I got this device sent to me from 2retro.com. A fantastic website, they ship worldwide, and thanks very much for them to sending this for review purposes. I would definitely highly recommend it. If you want to buy one, I'll send you a link to their website. You can also get an extra 10% off this unit by putting in the code CrazyBurger. I'll put all these details into the description. It retails for about $75. Obviously if you get 10% off, that will bring it down under $70, which is a pretty competitive price on the market. But it is pretty cool, highly recommend it. It is one of the best little devices I've had, certainly in the last year or so. It is very, very cool. It covers so many different formats, plays most of them really well. Certainly not quite perfect, but it is very cool nonetheless. Anyway guys, thanks very much for watching. Catch you again in the next one. Bye for now.